Bethesda released the free Lanes update and paid Terran Armada DLC last week for Starfield on top of launching on PlayStation 5. Despite the flurry of activity around the long dormant game, most players are underwhelmed at the anemic additions, especially after the extremely long wait since the last expansion. Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news show brave enough to understand why everybody's moved on from Starfield.
Yeah, there's a lot more games and some games that kind of do what Starfield wants to do, maybe a little better than Starfield is doing it, but I want it to do well. I want it to do well. You know, it's like an ex that I'm no longer bitter about. I want to see Starfield sitting across a cafe with a bunch of happy players over there, and everyone's having a great time, and I can smile and nod, and the trilogy will be over at that point.
I guess good for you. I don't really know what to say to that. Writing for Insider Gaming, Grant Taylor-Hill collected a bunch of data showing that the internet reacted to Starfield's latest updates and new platform releases with a collective yawn.
Yeah, to Bethesda's credit, they did repeatedly insist that the Free Lanes update would not amount to a Starfield 2.0 style rework. And it wasn't, so they released upfront about it.
They did, but they did add a lot of stuff, I'll be honest. The Free Lanes update added the ability to cruise between planets, which finally you can fly, literally just fly from one planet to another. It's very similar to like Elite Dangerous. I know it's not like you're flying into a JPEG anymore, which is cool. There are new points of interest, and by the way, there are a lot of those, like a lot. They've added way more than you expect. A new in-game economy that allows you to further customize the perks on your gear, which I didn't really get to do yet.
Yeah, what is it called? The X-Tech, I think? Yeah.
X-Tech, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, there's also the Terran Armada DLC. That costs $10, and it introduces a new storyline following a faction of ruthless military deserters and their army of murderous robots, and they want to take over the galaxy and restore order or whatever. Yeah, that costs $10.
You get a little robot companion, too, to start, just so you know. But despite the free update and modestly priced DLC, Starfield did not see a massive turnaround in player interest.
Yeah, for starters, the Terran Armada DLC currently has a mixed review rating on Steam.
Yeah, Aurum Astra succinctly summarizes their thoughts, writing, "Cool setting, bad story and gameplay. It's literally the same thing over and over again. Very sad." By the way, that's what Starfield has always been, just so you know.
It's never not been that.
Yeah.
Steam user James is even more terse, posting that the game, quote, has to be money laundering at this point.
Even the positive reviews aren't exactly positive. Nzevil writes, quote, "There are some good things here, but also some things I just don't understand why Bethesda Game Studios does this to their games."
I thought that a lot playing Starfield, yeah. I amusingly saw a lot of reviews that wished there was a mixed review rating instead of just positive or negative, but it kind of averaged out to that. A bunch of other reviews that I skimmed complained about not being able to finish the expansion thanks to bugs that halted their progress, yeah.
Oh, that's such a bummer. I didn't know that. Even those that can complete the expansion also complain about the DLC's short runtime, with one user claiming they finished in 2 hours. I did not. I played about 2 hours of this, did not finish it. Who knows how close I was. And another saying it's not even worth the $10 price tag based on the amount of content.
But Bethesda also released a free update, and that seems to be going over slightly better, as you'd expect something free too.
That's true. Starfield earned a grip of fresh positive reviews on Steam, but even that is mixed, with an according swell in negative reviews.
Yeah, last week the game earned 755 positive reviews, that's good, but also 194 new negative ones.
Okay. So while the majority of reviewers approved of the free update, it still managed to disappoint some returning players.
And Starfield's overall review rating on Steam remains mixed, even when only looking at the past 30 days. So even with a big new update, still mixed.
Yeah, it's too bad. Insider Gaming reports that stream viewership on Twitch didn't come close to the game's previous peaks. Starfield grabbed more than 550,000 concurrent viewers when it launched back in 2023.
Since then, it has not been nearly so popular. That number sank to around 40,000 when Shattered Space launched in October 2024. And for Terran Armada, only 13,000 peak concurrent viewers showed interest in watching the game. And that was with some sponsorships and stuff like that. I was sponsored when the game launched, but Bruce, you were sponsored to play this most recent update, right?
I've been sponsored all the way around. So I was sponsored at the very beginning for Shattered Space and for the Free Lanes update and for Terran Armada. And I'll get to my thoughts on that, but just so you know, I've liked Starfield for a long time. So whenever they offered to sponsor my stream, I'm like, absolutely.
Cool, yeah, I am excited to hear from you about it. But to round out the news here, the only possible glimmer of hope that we can see in Starfield's performance metrics are in actually the concurrent Steam player counts.
Yeah, that's actually true. The game hit a peak of 30,000 concurrent players over the weekend, which is actually just a fraction of the 330,000 concurrent players it had at launch, but it's been 3 years, so.
Yeah, that's to be expected. Here's the good news, though. That number actually trended consistently up from the update's launch throughout the weekend.
Oh, that is good. Starfield only racked up 20,000 concurrent players on the day of the update's release. That number actually ticked up day over day leading into the weekend.
Yeah, which you would normally expect. Now, generally when there's no interest in any game at all, and we've seen this a lot, there's a spike on the very first day, and then it just goes down and down and down from there. I think we saw that with High Guard. But this is actually kind of different. It spiked and then grew up over the weekend. Now, generally, of course, also games tend to increase in performance leading up to their first weekend and throughout their first weekend. So the game's performance over this week will be extremely telling as if players are sticking around or not. But still, any positive trend is nice to see, and we've definitely seen the opposite with a lot of other games that have just withered on the vine immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, Starfield was not quite a showstopper during its PlayStation 5 debut. It's on PS5 now. The game didn't crack the top 10 bestsellers on the US PlayStation Store until April 8th, the day after launch, when it ranked in at number 9.
People weren't snapping up pre-orders, indicating they weren't necessarily frothing about it, but maybe some positive word of mouth after the release actually had some people checking it out and interested in it. So I don't know. It seems like the vibe on the net is that word of mouth isn't astronomically disappointed as it used to be, but most people are just still kind of disappointed. How about you, Bruce? We waited 2 years since the last update. Does it feel like this is 2 years of work?
No. That is crazy that we waited 2 years. That's a long time. And it is a great update, by the way. I've noticed a lot of people on Reddit, on the Starfield subreddit, posting positive, which I generally do not see on Reddit, by the way. Usually in the Reddit, the subreddit for the game, everyone's negative about everything. Battlefield is the perfect example of that. But Starfield, everybody was actually like, no, this is good, because it is a good update. And I actually think this is better, way better than the Shattered Space update. Shattered Space, the DLC was so strange because they were like, okay, you know how Starfield, you fly around on a bunch of planets? Well, walk around in one area. And I was like, what a weird thing to do for DLC. Terran Armada is not like that. It's pretty standard DLC, but it's I think what you'd expect from Starfield. The Free Lanes update is actually a massive update when it's the free stuff for everybody. All the X-Tech stuff that you get to add to different weapons and like armor and stuff like that, all the new perks and stuff like that. You can now upgrade your powers with specific currency that drops rather than going to like temples and doing all that garbage that you had to do before. So they've made it a lot better. They really have. Like it truly is so much better. So you don't even really need to buy the DLC. I would just update for the Free Lanes update. They added a new rover that I could not get to save my life because, like I was saying, there are so many more POIs. Remember, Lawrence, when you drop in on a planet and it would be like the same 3 things. It would be like a lab, a radio station, and one other thing. Now there's like 100 of them. So what that means is that new rover, you have to like literally land over and over on specific planets to see if the rover will spawn in one of those POIs. It's really interesting. And I was like, oh, this can't be that hard, right? I did it for like an hour, did not get it because I kept seeing new POIs. So I was like, okay, well, there is new content there. I didn't get the rover, but they added a lot of new POIs. So you probably will not see the same thing over and over. Unless you play a lot of Starfield. And like I said before, I really have always liked this game. It is, interestingly enough, with Starfield, everyone's complaints about Starfield, including yours, have always been valid. Like, it's like the story's kind of boring. It feels like the same thing over and over again. It feels very like, I don't know how to put it. It feels like there's like it's milquetoast. Just everything's milquetoast. But when I play the game, I lose a lot of time and I have a good time. Like, I walk away from 3 hours of Starfield being like, well, that was relaxing, and I didn't realize I played 3 hours. So it's a weird game. It is not like a Fallout or a Skyrim at all. Like I have like cool stories I walked away with from Skyrim or Fallout. Not with Starfield. But I really do like playing it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think just underwhelmed is the dominant feeling and remains the dominant feeling. I was really impressed with the Free Lanes update. I think it took far too long to come out, and that's a whole other issue. But that is that's a really promising way to maintain and update games when you just fundamentally update the basic structure and then make that the core game now. And that kind of starts to chip away at what my main problem with Starfield was. which is the moment to moment shooting and leveling and just hovering up items. That's as fun as it ever was. And to that degree, Bethesda really did nail their formula. What they didn't nail was the volume of stuff. If it's going to be a shallow game, there has to be a lot of it so that the shallowness doesn't like build up and wear out too quickly. And that's what Free Lanes is starting to do by adding POIs. I think especially by adding it so when you're cruising from planet to planet, the fact that events can happen during that cruise, or you can run into POIs in space. Okay, Bethesda, you understand what you do well, and you're starting to do it again. But what was baffling to me is, land on a planet, outpost is 500 meters away. You run there, see nothing the whole way, and when you get to it, it's the same outpost you've seen before with the same NPCs doing the same things. And you just kill them all and loot the same boxes and get the same items. And that's where it really fell apart. And to me, I think that's the big difference between Starfield, even post-update, and something like Crimson Desert, which is a dumb, superficial game that offers the most saccharine video game thrills, but it manages to do it in such a broad, just take the breath out of your lungs kind of package that you're left to be dazzled at how silly and stupid it is, but also how much there is to do. Whereas Starfield, I burned through everything there was to do in a couple days. I got to New Game Plus 2, and I was like, what else is there? I'm done.
Yeah, you're totally right. And it's interesting too, there's just one thing that Starfield would add. Just one. It would be VATS from Fallout. And the reason is, shooting in Starfield, it's fun. Whatever, it's fine. But if they added VATS, just add the slow motion shooting in to the enemies that you get. And I promise you have hours and hours and hours of replayability. Just the one mechanic, fake it and just throw it in there and be you can slow time down now. It's one of your starborn powers or whatever. And then do that. I was just watching clips just randomly on Reddit of somebody who had knifed off somebody's head in Fallout, and their head popped off and went into a basketball hoop. And I was like, people are still doing this in Fallout because the shooting and the actual action of Fallout is always so engaging. And in Starfield, it's not. It really is not. You run up and shoot the shotgun over and over and try to figure out what gun will do some crazy, mechanic or some crazy chaotic thing that will be funny to watch. The weapons they're so hard to get to do that in Starfield. It takes a long time to make it do that. So if they just added VATS, just one thing to make the combat more fun, I think they'd have a whole new game.
I agree. And maybe they'll get there in 5 more years, 6 more years, who knows? And by that point, who knows what kind of games they'll be competing with. Yeah, it's sad to see Bethesda kind of lose the ability to ship content quickly, especially when you look at the pace of the expansions they launched for something like Fallout 3. Granted, that was another era, and games were a lot faster and easier to make back then. I think also people's tolerances for janky, hastily made content was a little wider back then too. But yes, it's tough to see how they can keep up. Luckily, if they release expansions every couple of years, then at least we have a moment to kind of touch back and be like, hey, how's Starfield doing? How's our little guy doing? Does he have a job yet? No? Okay, well, keep applying, buddy. We're pulling for you.
Lawrence, I don't know if you saw the news. Pete Hines did an interview where he was talking about how Bethesda was what did he say? It was it was getting damaged and broken apart, and they're part of something that's not authentic or genuine because of the Microsoft merger. And I was listening to this and reading this, and it so reflects on Starfield. And he retired. Pete Hines retired right around the launch of Starfield, and it's so interesting because he clearly could see that in Starfield. He saw that they were losing their way, and it's too bad because I really do love Bethesda. I have loved Bethesda for years, and I'm going to continue to love Bethesda, and I even just love the little taste they give me in Starfield. So it's one of those things where I read this thing and I was like, man, Pete Hines could see it, and he was bummed out about it because he knew what they had. And so I really do hope that Bethesda gets back to what they were doing well.
Man, if that's possible. I can't imagine too many companies that had a path through corporate of being acquired but then rediscovering their mojo. You could argue Bungie with their new Marathon. I mean, that game's got a lot of soul, it's got a lot of heart, and it's a bold game for sure, but it hasn't delivered them financial success, and I think that's where the true pitfall is once you start asking for certain budgets, then you are obligated to deliver certain results. And that changes your creative process in a way that I don't think can ever change back unless you quit and maybe start a new studio. I'm not saying Pete Hines is going to do that. But yes, I've always loved Pete Hines' candor. He's one of the few straight shooters executives. I guess Katsuhiro Harada might be another one, but yeah, and then even he's retiring too. So the video games they're no place for straight shooters anymore.
That's really too bad. Thank you very much for listening to us talk about Starfield again. Maybe in 10 years they'll patch it to where it should have been at launch. All right. I mean, I know that they're getting there. They're going to get to the game when they should have launched. I just don't know what it is. Hopefully we will still be doing inside games when that happens. The fact that you chose to watch and spend this time with us is a big help in getting there. So thank you very much for watching the video, maybe even subscribing to the channel if you did that. And if you enjoyed our reporting, please subscribe to our channel. Recommend us to your friends. That always helps as well. Just telling your friends, hey, it's a good video game news. And if you really enjoyed the reporting, we have a Patreon that Lawrence posts hot memes to. I don't know if you have any Starfield memes to post.
The meme culture around Starfield isn't that great. I'm going to be honest.
No, you're right about that. But we'd like to shout out some of those Patreon supporters right now. Talia Monochrome, Jay Rallywark, Tyler Jensen, Jared Watkins, and Cesar Mendez. Thank you very, very much for making sure we can outlast Bethesda's astronomically long development times.